So, Congressman, the Senate, I know this is an issue that you've been out in the front on in the House. The Senate this week sent your way, in a bipartisan vote, a measure to finally extend unemployment benefits for the long-term unemployed, only doing so for 5 months. But
Right.
where are we now? Where's this bound for the House?
Well,
in the House?
we obviously would all have preferred a full year extension, but now that the Senate has acted in a bipartisan fashion, a 5-month extension through the end of May, because it would be retroactive to December 28 when the benefits were cut off, I filed a bill identical to the Senate language just a few minutes after the Senate's final action. We're getting co-sponsors across the board at this point in time. So we have a bill.
Yeah.
Speaker Boehner can bring it to the floor. It would have bipartisan support. That's clear. 7 Republicans in the House wrote a letter to the Speaker just after the Senate acted, asking that he bring it up immediately. So there's, and 7 Republicans who are willing to put their name on a letter, in this conference anyway, generally is indicative of a much larger number that would support this sort of thing if it came to the floor.
So if Boehner, most likely at any rate, if the Speaker would bring this to a vote, allow it to come to a vote on the full floor of the House, it would pass.
I don't have much doubt about that. Now, just in conversation with other members, here's the thing. Folks who are unemployed don't all congregate into Democratic districts. They live everywhere.
Isn't that amazing? Some of these people actually live in red states,
It's amazing. It really is.
Yeah, and Republican districts.
And here's the thing. They're losing their houses. They're losing their apartments. They're losing their cars. The damage that is done to individuals who are simply trying to get from the last job to the next job is not just some problem for a few weeks or a few months. It can change the trajectory of a family for generations. This is the way.
Yeah.
I went and visited a homeless shelter in my hometown of Flint, Michigan, just a couple of weeks ago. And it was just a standard sort of visit to understand the problems of homelessness in my community. But the conversation revolved mostly around the new folks that they're seeing, people who never imagined being in this condition, who had never turned to government or social services for any kind of help. The reason I mention it is the Republicans generally, or at least Speaker Boehner and a few others, are saying that we shouldn't take this up, this emergency unemployment extension, because it's no longer an emergency. Somehow they've determined...
You mean because they've been unemployed so long?
This is what I can't figure out. I think they're misunderstanding the nature of emergency unemployment benefits. It's not that it's a political emergency. It's an emergency for the people who don't have a job, have lost their benefits, and are trying to figure out how they're going to keep their family together, feed them, and have some kind of a life. They're the ones having an emergency. For some reason, and I almost sound like, it sounds like a Republican talking point when I say this, these folks believe that if it's not a political emergency in Washington, then it must not be an emergency. They need to go home. They need to get out into their communities, go to the unemployment lines, talk to people who are really having this problem. If we do that, I don't have much doubt that not only would a majority of Congress, but an overwhelming majority would vote for this extension. It's paid for, too. It's not like we're asking them to increase the deficit. We've got a way to pay for it.
I do not understand the political, I know it's not all politics, but I don't understand the political benefit for Republicans of opposing an increase in the minimum wage or extension of unemployment benefits or the Paycheck Fairness Act. I mean, you can add the three of them together, right?
The president is for these things.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Oh,
I mean, you go back to, who was it? I think it was Mitch McConnell. You go back just a few years, and it rings true even today. Even though the president's in his second term, their goal has been from the very beginning to make sure that this president does not succeed in any way, shape, or form. So it's interesting because some of the president's policies have been taken directly from previous Republican policy playbooks.
Sure.
Put his name on it, and suddenly their idea becomes a bad idea. And so unemployment extension, George W. Bush signed in 2008 unemployment extension without it being paid for. But we can't do that now. Not
And
with this president
George
in the
W.
White
Bush
House.
signed raising the minimum wage, increasing the minimum wage as well, which Republicans at the time supported. But you're right, they won't do it today because it has President Obama's name on it.
Right.
You are now a member of the House Budget Committee.
Right.
Your ranking Democrat, Congressman Chris Van Hollen, is often here in the studio with us.
He's a great member.
You have the Ryan budget now. What's going to happen to it? Is it DOA or?
Well, it'll be. I think it's DOA as a budget document. It will more than almost certainly pass the House because the Republicans will line up behind it. But here's the thing: it's not a budget in the sense that we think about budgets. It's a political document. They know that it will never become law, and if they thought it might become law, they would be forced to do this in a different way. Just a couple of examples. They, at least according to their talking points and according to what they say, they repeal the Affordable Care Act. What would this be, the 53rd vote or 54th vote to repeal?
No, I think it's 58.
Is it really? Well,
Yeah, I think we're at 57.
It happens on a regular basis. It's hard to keep track.
It is.
So they say they repeal the Affordable Care Act, but interestingly enough, because they need certain revenues to offset the big tax cuts for the wealthiest, they keep all of the taxes or fees that are within the Affordable Care Act, this awful piece of legislation that's the job killer. They keep all of that, and then they keep all the savings that are derived from getting preventive care into the hands of people who are currently uninsured. There are savings that result over the 10-year budget window that we look at. They keep all the savings. They just take away all the benefits that would generate the savings in the first place. They cut the tax rate, the top rate, to 25%. Even Dave Camp, in his tax reform, couldn't get the tax rate, the top tax rate, down below 35% without wrecking the economy. At least Dave, not just at least, he's intellectually honest about this. The Ryan budget takes it to 25%, and there's about $4 trillion in taxes that will have to be made up over the 10-year period. Who's going to pay for it? If you take the top rate down to 25%, and you've got to recover a whole bunch of revenue, who's going to pay? It's not the folks at the top because their rate's established. It's going to be middle-income earners.